going on there, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. We're back with another episode for y'all. Continuing our... I'm sorry. Yes, we're back with another... Sorry, you lost my train of thought there for a second. It's been one of those days.
I think you've been listening to Biden too much, and like your dementia is getting, starting to
I know,
get
right?
the best of you.
If you hold something close, near and dear to your... Anyways. That is a direct quote. That is a direct quote. It's like, yeah, when you hold something near and dear, and anyways, he literally said that.
You know the thing. You
know the things. True intermittent pressure.
It's both like sad and hilarious and just
just completely soul crushing. That's what it is. But yes, we're back.
He's the most popular president of all time. Right. I mean, 80 million people voted for him.
Yeah, he's more popular than Obama, the first black president. Well, half black president. But yeah, we gotta, with me co-hosting this thing as ever is the homeboy Rob.
Hey yo.
Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff for you in store tonight. We got commentary about new current events, as well as our usual movie review, and we're continuing our theme this month of Guest Month, and this month's guest was a regular on the Circle of Jerks podcast, Dan the Man Genud, and he picked the and of course, as per the theme, per the rules of Guest Month, the guest gets to pick the movie, and he's picked the sci-fi mystery thriller Predestination, starring Ethan Hawke.
And what a mindfuck that movie is! Oh
yeah,
man.
I mean, you'll see later on, but it's a real mind bender. And I'll I enjoyed it despite the the spells and the narratives being pushed in it, I'm a very fair-minded person, and I'm able to enjoy a thing for the thing's sake.
I will say it's a story well told. Mm-hmm. It's not in your face with the spells. I mean, you see them if you have your eyes open, you see them, but it's not like
it doesn't beat you over the head with it.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, it's one of the most faithful book adaptations I've ever seen. Either
I think it was more of a short story than a book,
but still. Very, because I read up on it, and it's actually very faithful to it.
Yeah.
So
well, that's what I heard as well. I mean, I wasn't able to find the short story itself, but from other people's reviews of the movie, they say that it's very true to the short story written back in like the 60s, late 60s or 50s.
It was the 50s.
Right. So. We got all that to look forward to. Just a bit. Just a little. Let's play a little catch up. Rob, how's your weekend?
Weekend was pretty good actually. I just kind of hung out with the wife for a bit. We were working. But when I wasn't working, I was here kind of hanging out with my wife, and it's funny. She was wanting to watch a movie, and she was like, "Oh, I kind of want to watch like a comedy movie," and so I was like, "Do you trust me?" And she, she's always like, "Oh boy, here we go." It's like, well, okay, trust me on this one, and I got her to watch Beverly Hills Cop, which is. Older than, I think it's as old as you. I was 80. 85. Actually, no, it's a year older. It's a year younger than you. It's
Mm-hmm.
a movie from '85,
Mm-hmm.
and she loved it, which no, as you know, Andy, and as hopefully our audience knows, my wife is anything that like, came before she was born is pretty much out. It doesn't exist, and it doesn't
Right.
matter. It doesn't matter that it's a great classic that everyone watches it like and but oh no, it's too old, it's too boring, too oh black and white, that's gross. Uh or God forbid we watch a silent movie. It's like there's no sound in this movie. It's stupid. But she did love Beverly Hills Cop, and
No,
I
what's there
actually
not to like?
well exactly. It's a movie I had not seen in decades,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still so much fun. And we actually started watching the sequels, which I actually have never seen 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't quite finish 2, but we'll probably get that finished, either this week or next. Um, we'll watch number 3, so that was fun. And then Sunday I ended up um, having I end up having sleeping in a little bit because it's been a long week. I've been working overtime pretty much almost every day the last like few weeks because we have people out for various reasons, either them
Mm-hmm.
getting the COVID vaccination and it not reacting well, or people just not being there or being on vacation. All manner of reasons.
Right.
And so
Interestingly
Sunday,
enough.
yeah, so Sunday
Oh.
was like my one day off,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up sleeping in a little bit, and then ended up having lunch with our guest for this for this week, um, Dan the
Oh
Man,
no.
and we ended up hanging out, having some lunch together
Mm-hmm.
at Pineapple, and then we came back and watched Psycho, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, number 5 on my list,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just I haven't seen that movie in probably about a year, and yeah, it was just great to watch it because we were uh, him and I were talking about potential future episodes together, and some movies that we've been wanting to watch, and um, Psycho. He was like, hey, you know what? I haven't seen that in a while, and it's just goddamn, the movie's so good. I think we ended up reviewing that for our Hitchcock month too. It
Yeah,
just
no, of course you have to.
that oh, it's to me that's Alfred Hitchcock's best movie, and it just I mean there's so many great ones, but to me that's the best one,
Mm.
hands down.
I would have to agree with you on that.
But yeah, that's pretty much my weekend. Just not doing too much. Like when I had a chance, I've been trying to get into. I finally beat Red Dead Redemption. It only took me 9 years, so I beat that, and now I'm on to another game on my backlog. There's a series called Persona. It's an RPG
Mm-hmm.
series. I'm playing the very first one, or the very first one, which I'm actually enjoying so far. It's kind of interesting. You have these characters that in this one, it's high school students, and they end up getting kind of sucked into this interdimensional like universe, and they end up powers uh, to channel what are called personas. Like
Mm-hmm.
it helps them to like fight against like the demons that are in this realm. It's kind of interesting. It's got a little bit of like it's kind of like if you're into like the whole like multiverse thing with like comic books, it kind of has that feel to it a little bit where you're getting sucked into another part of like it's a universe with like different rules and stuff. So kind of cool stuff. I like the game so far. Um, and yeah, that's my weekend.
Cool.
How about you, Andy? What have you been up to in the last week?
Uh, the last week. This all seems to blur together now.
Well, I mean, you're already on it. I mean, I can see, the the brain turning to soup, from the very beginning today. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's just what did I do? I didn't. Yeah, this weekend I didn't do too much. Well, Saturday. Um, Dude, for the life of me, I can't even remember. Not that it was, I didn't do anything or it was boring. It's just, I mean, I did watch the fights, which they were actually on early that day. I forget why, but for some reason, yeah, just the fights they happened way earlier in the day, so there was no, I didn't go out at night. But yeah, I think it was a pretty chill weekend mostly. Saturday, I went to church, hung out with, people at church. Um, oh my God, last week we hung out last week, right?
we hung out on Monday. Yeah, so we hung out
That's what
before
it was.
last week's
Yeah.
trip.
Right,
But
right, right. That's right.
God, honestly, like, I know it's only been like a week, but it feels like a month ago.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's so crazy.
Well, and it's funny because it made sense after we talked yesterday. But I had like been texting you throughout the week, and it's like I'm just getting like nothing. I'm like, okay, like I guess like Andy's busy, like, and I thought like I gave you something that was like it garnered a response, but then you viewed it and like didn't respond. I'm like, okay, it's like, and I was like, man, I don't want to. I was like, I wanted to message you, but it's like, I don't want to bug him. Maybe something's going on, like, or maybe he's pissed off at me for some reason. I don't know. And then he finally got back to me yesterday, and I was like, oh yeah, there was like you had like some problems with your phone, I guess, and it was just, it was kind of funny. I was like, okay, good, he's talking to me. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't remember. Hold on. Let me look at the message real fast.
because I think like
Um.
something happened with like your screen, and like you said like, oh, it
Right.
might be.
Well. Yeah. But before that, hold on. Let me see. What did you before you sent me?
Yeah, because I was trying to talk
Oh,
to you about.
right. You were sending. You're talking about the what is it? The what is it? Recording for the last because we still haven't done the last pre tape for guest month, and you were asking me
Right.
about that. Um,
And then I was also trying to
yeah, and
like
then you also wanted to share some ideas for today's stream. Ultimately, but yeah, I think I do this weird thing. I don't know. I don't know about any of you out there, but I do this weird thing where sometimes I'll read messages and I'll think about the response, but I won't actually respond.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, like, because I thought of the response and I said it within my mind, it feels like I had said, I said what was on my mind to you,
Just
and
not.
so yeah, but I just didn't like actually like type it out and send it to you. I thought about it, and then I thought about my response, what my response would be, and it's like, oh, okay, and then like something like distracts me, which makes me, which then for some, it derails me, but then I still think that I sent it off because I thought about it. I don't know if
Yeah,
anyone else. I don't know if anyone else has that problem, but
I've done that before.
uh,
But you do it very consistently. Where I'm like, and you told me it's like, listen, like if I don't respond to you, like I'm not mad at you. Like it's nothing you did. Like if I'm mad at you, you'll know it. Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to be honest though, like when you do that though, like what to my wife, like, oh my god, is Andy angry at me? Did I do something? It's like, oh my god, it's like
I know,
it.
I know,
What
I know.
do
It
you do?
totally triggers her neuroses. I get it. I
No, dude, everything triggers her. Everything. It's just
know.
God.
Yeah. I
I
mean, honestly, I've really only been mad at you one time, and you know what, when that was.
And it involves her. Yeah.
Yeah, and it involves her. Yeah, so yeah, so like when I'm mad at you.
Oh yeah, that was I that whole day I was like, she was pissed off at me, you were pissed off at me, nobody was happy.
Yeah, nobody was happy that day. Um, but yeah, like I know, like I know I'm not the best like texter. Uh,
Oh no,
that's something I gotta work. I mean, I don't know if I have to work on it, but I'm just not that good of a texter. I prefer more like direct communications. So a lot of times, I actually like talking to people on the phone. Like, the primary
I
function of a phone, which is becoming a lost art. Just like
I
being able to
probably
speak. Just being able to speak. Extemporaneously. I know everyone now like needs to like at least 5 minutes to compose a tweet or I mean a text. But yeah, I'm more comfortable with like just just talking to someone directly. And I mean
I probably
technically texting can be direct as long as like both parties are responding to each other within within a relative window of time. But yeah, sometimes I just think about the response, but then I don't send it, and it's just like, oh, I surely I sent it because I thought of the response, but that's not always the case.
well, because I probably should call you more, which I think I'll start doing. The problem is though, is that like a lot of times, like when we're talking, obviously we do like talk about like other stuff too,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of times we're talking about the podcast because we're doing quite a bit of content that we're always that we're trying to put out there,
Mm-hmm.
and come up with like some ideas that I'm trying to throw your way. If I just talk to you and I don't have it like written down, it just poof, it's gone. So that's
Right.
why like sometimes I like to text it to you. So that
Uh,
way, like, okay, what did I tell Andy, a couple days ago? Oh, there it is, right here. Good, I remembered.
right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know,
So maybe
I
what
mean,
I'll do.
for your sake, I'll try and better my response time, or
Oh no, no,
just
Andy,
on.
don't you don't have to change it. Like I think what I'll do.
Well, I mean, I think it's just in general like some a good practice to get into. Because I mean not everyone enjoys direct line of communications, and so you know.
No, I think what I'm gonna do is like I'll call you like and actually talk to you,
Mhm.
but at the same time I'll write down like some of our like bullet points and thoughts and just
Mhm.
like put it in our chat together so that way
Mhm.
we can like we have it written down and we also like actually talk to each other.
That might be a solution going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great compromise right there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, call me old fashioned, but I like to hear people's voices, and there's so much that gets lost, in text communication that because that's I think what was it? I'm sure it's been done before, but the most prominent example I can think of is that sketch that Key and Peele did.
Oh,
Where it's like
dude. That is
it's, exactly. So like two friends are texting, but like everything is taken out of context, but because they can't hear the tone of the other person, so they think that each of the parties thinks that the other is mad at them, and so it just like kind of escalates, and
yeah. Yeah.
um,
That's God, that happens so much.
yeah, and and again because like what was it? A third of human communications is nonverbal. So like the way someone the expression on their face, the way they like kind of shift in their chair, or they clasp their hands, or I mean I mean I get it. Like when you're talking on the phone, you don't really have the benefits of like being able to see that see the see the body language, but you can at least hear like in their voice. Um, like if someone's being sarcastic or someone is being serious or someone's just being silly.
Right,
And I
right,
think
right.
that's why like a lot of young people they don't know how to like talk to people.
Well, I
Or
mean,
or they don't know like and I think like they don't know how to like relate because like you were how you were saying when you know what is it when you described people come to you after watching like our podcast and say like, man, you guys hate each other.
yeah,
It's like, no,
yeah,
this is that's how men that's how men talk to each other. you know
yeah. I mean, it's like Andy's like my brother. It's just. I mean, we've only known each other for you know what, like
about a
this year,
better part of a decade.
7.
Better
Yeah,
part of a decade.
we're getting close to a decade, but it's like honestly, like you're my brother.
Yeah. Right, but I mean, just yeah, just but also like the way like just like kind of men talk to each other. It's we just we bust chops and it's not very flowery language, or we're not like, oh, Rob, how you doing? Are you feeling okay? It's like, hey,
If you start
why are you being such a
talking to me,
it's more it's more direct, but also like standoffish, where it's like, hey, man, why are you being such a dickhead? Yeah, I mean,
I mean, it's honestly like
you're still showing concern. It's just not like all is like soft and flowery.
yeah, if you started talking to me like, oh, how is everything going? It's like, dude, what's wrong with you?
Well, if that happened, I probably got that that double castration I've always been wanting.
Yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, yeah, I mean, I think maybe with the advent of FaceTime or like video calling as I think has helped. 'Cause I think that is becoming more of a means of communication, especially for like young people.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but yeah, I just like listening. I like hearing the sound of people's voices, and I know like um, I forget if this is true or not, but I remember hearing that even through the phone is not exactly 100% like experiencing that person's voice because something to do with like certain frequencies they can't like it doesn't translate through the phone, so like they leave them out. There's like two frequencies that can't be duplicated through like the vibration of like a diaphragm or whatever, or like the membrane in like the phone receiver that it just doesn't translate.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like for me, the preferred method is like talking to someone face to face,
Right.
because you can actually like look someone in their eyes and kind of you can kind of gauge a lot more from that.
Right.
But
Yeah, like a
I
shift of the like a shift like shifting of a glance or kind of or yeah, just like kind of like shifting the posture in your seat.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
And I mean, obviously, like
it
I
all
like
tells a story, and like it all and like you what is it like your inner thoughts are being you know your body kind of betrays like the what is it the vault that is supposed to be your mind, and and it just
yeah.
and telegraphs what you're really thinking.
I mean, that's why like I enjoy just having like a few beers and just sitting down like talking about whatever's on the docket. Obviously you and me, God, we talk about. I mean, we talk about pretty much everything. Obviously, like we, we talk about the podcast. We talk about stuff going on in our life. We talk about. I mean, we obviously our one of our favorite things to talk about is movies,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, but yeah, we
culture
talk about
and
everything. We talk about philosophy. We talk about metaphysics.
theology.
I mean, yeah, theology. It's it's always a good time talking with you, Rob. And
Yeah,
also just being just having you there to be like a soundboard to like work out ideas or complex thoughts that I've been working on myself. Just so I think that's what I miss the most about since the lockdowns have happened, it's just like
It's a lot
me
less.
being with people in the same place. You know,
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, like I was actually talking with Jason this past Sunday. And he was just kind of like he was just kind of reminiscing on like old times, um, and how like how how much we've come, and how like he doesn't really miss the topic of like going out and like having drinks, and back in the day, we were a little bit more reckless, and he was saying like, oh yeah, I don't really miss the drinking, and I was like, yeah, I mean. And then I kind of chimed in saying like, yeah, for me it wasn't really about the drinking. It was just like having a good time with you guys. And then but that was the being together and like sharing like the same experience, and we could have like that kind of bond. And that's when he was like, he kind of like, yeah, that's what I miss too. That's exactly what it is. I don't miss like the drinking per se, but just being able to be with you guys, in the same place, experiencing the same thing, and having that bond. And so yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I've been missing with since the lockdowns happened. So yeah, really looking forward to have the day when we can get back out there and just and not necessarily to drink, but just to be with each other.
right.
That's what I'm longing
Well, I mean, it wasn't like about the drinking. Like,
for. Right.
that's not like why I went out with you guys. I went out with you guys because it's just fun to talk with you. But obviously, like, having like a couple of beers or whatever is just kind of with your closest friends, and just I think it allows for just a lot of male bonding. Being able
Mm-hmm.
to be more free to share about like things that are important. Because I don't honestly, our conversations were never like about like, I don't think anything frivolous. We always, I mean, yeah, we talked about like certain things, like we talked about MMA, we talked about like some sports stuff, but
Right.
a lot of
Yeah.
our
So it's not
conversations
like we
were
were
all
talking about unicorn farts all night, but
yeah. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that are kind of feeling the same, that are in the same boat. That for us, I mean, a lot of the stuff that's been going on in California is very, it's kind of like what we're going to be talking about tonight. With it's a lot of it is very manipulated, but I think there's a lot of people who are like-minded that just want to be able to like go back to doing what we are accustomed to doing, which is going to sporting events, going to the bars, going to restaurants, going to the movie theaters, um, going wherever and just enjoying each other's company. And the thing is, like, I'm always willing to have everyone here to share some drinks, share some laughs, just talk and hang out, play games, stuff like that. It's not the same thing. Sometimes it's just nice being able to go out somewhere uh, as a group and hang out. Which is, I kind of miss that. Like, but I don't want to go to a place where it's like, ooh, we gotta wear our masks and blah blah. It's like, no, I'm not gonna wear that fucking thing.
or
Like
yeah,
to
where there's a time limit too. Because I remember just before the second
yeah,
lockdown happened or was initiated, towards the Thanksgiving time. We went out to dinner for James's birthday, and we went to a Korean barbecue place. Uh,
yep,
but what is it? We were only allowed to be there for like maximum 2 hours.
yeah. I mean, a lot of places that like it's I know right now Pineapple, because they have the outdoor seating. They're not seating indoors yet, but
Oh
like
really? Even
it
even though they
like
technically can.
yeah, they could. Like it. I know at peak hours there's like at peak hours. So like if you go like in the afternoon, that's you're
Uh,
fine. But
right.
at peak hours you get 90. You got like an hour and a half,
Right.
and
Like, because right now with like the restrictions, it makes sense because they want to hurry up and you can't just go there and like order, you know, a bowl of chips and you know and water and just hang out there for like 5 hours. You know,
That's the thing.
they
Like,
have to
if
like you
you're
know they have to get you know they have to have that turnaround on that table so they can make as much money as possible because they are at reduced capacity.
right, well, that's what I'm thinking. If you're constantly ordering stuff, I'm wondering if that like obviously with the Korean barbecue, you've already paid, so and you're getting an all you can eat. So
Right.
yeah, 2 hours, it's like you're done. But like at a bar, if you're ordering drinks, like like you're drinking for like 2 hours, which which is crazy.
Right.
But if you were doing that, would they kick you out at 90 minutes if you're paying? That's the thing. Like I would think not, but who knows? But yeah, the last couple times I went to Pineapple, I went in the afternoon, just because. Well, I went or my our local watering hole, but because the food's good, the drinks are good, and but nighttime, it's just hard for me to do it at night anymore, just because, or in the evening, just because I work early in the mornings, which I like. I to be honest, I kind of like that, but um, yeah, God, I just I know there's gonna come a time where people finally, it's like, fuck the government, fuck all this, we're going back to normal. Who gives a goddamn what Dr. Fauci, praise be upon him,
Hallowed be his name.
says.
Yeah. Well, to I guess maybe help the transition. I remember just the other day I saw a video of what is it? A Dodger game, and you know, and our illustrious mayor Eric Garcetti was there
Oh, he got.
to hoist the championship banner, you know, in celebration of the Dodgers, you know, World Series victory last year. And to my surprise, he got a thorough booing
Oh,
when he was
deservedly
announced. It deservedly
deservedly.
so. Deservedly so.
But hey, you know what? That's actually we were talking about this last week too. I think that's the first I've heard of him in months, because obviously a
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
the
No. He is. Yeah. Garcetti is laying in the cut right now because right now Gavin Newsom is he's the target. You know, Gavin Newsom is the one that has the target on his back right now, and so yeah, Garrett Garcetti, as hated as he is right now doing the right move and laying low and just laying in the cut, waiting, you know, letting Garcetti take all the hits.
And to be honest, I'm shocked that he showed his face at Dodger Stadium.
I'm
Of all
right,
places.
yeah, Mister, yeah, like oh, like you know because of the pandemic, we're not gonna, you know, we're not, you know, if you miss a payment on your water or, you know, on your utilities, then it's not a big thing. Fast forward to like a few months later, where it's like, hey, if you have an unauthorized gathering, then we're gonna shut off your power
Yeah,
and water. It's like, what the fuck?
yeah, and that's another guy that needs to be run out of town on a rail,
Oh,
just
thoroughly. Oh yeah,
because.
and like I mean, again, and like when, you know, early on in the so-called pandemic, you know, to discourage people from gathering, like he went, you know, he had the what is it, the bowl at Venice, like filled in with sand, and I was like, and when I saw that, it like, I mean, I'm not a skater, but it broke my heart. It felt like he was like, it felt like he was bulldozing a church.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, they're never gonna get that stand out. Like,
Well, I
it's
think they already
impossible.
did, but
Did
or
they?
like,
I mean,
well, no, 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 but it didn't because I have seen recent videos of Venice, and I think, you know, I did see some skate, you know, people using the bowl again, but I can't be 100% sure on that. Don't hold me to that, but
yeah,
but then I was then encouraged even more because then there was images of people, skaters, still using the bowl with the sand in it. You know, they're still. You know,
you know what? I will say one thing. I'm not a skater, but those guys are fucking resilient, dude. They don't give a fuck. They will skate
right?
where they will find a way to skate. mean, they've
Yeah,
had
yeah.
it's gotten to the point where like they had to put up, like places had to put up signs like no skating here. It's like because they'll find anywhere to skate. Like it's like,
Right, right.
hey,
I mean, that's
there's a
why.
rail there. I can grind
Yeah,
on
no.
that.
What is it? Yeah, that's why businesses, that they've started putting like these anti-skateboarding things. Like say there's like a planter, which makes a very tempting rail for a skater. They would put like these metal, I don't know, like strip things down so like so you couldn't perfectly grind across the edge. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think despite that, I think skaters would still find a way to skate it.
Yeah, they are very resilient.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
Well,
let's get into uh, the topics for tonight, and I'll let you lead it off on the first one.
well, obviously we have a few different things. I've been working. We're working on a new potential future episode that I've actually been working on for a little bit and trying to get uh, the lineup of guests and you know kind of gathered together. And because of that, you when you're researching for an episode, you notice things, and we've probably talked about this seemingly ad nauseum, but it goes back to medium, and like as we said, the it's as the title in the description says, it's a tale of two stories, and it's not so much like that the media lies, but which what they choose to highlight and what they choose to
Wait, say that again. You're
bury
cutting in and
or
out. You're
never
cutting out there for a
recover.
second.
And the
Rob, could you
a
repeat
lot of the news
that
stories
last?
recently, it's been like that. I was sharing with Andy before we started. We have, um, obviously we talked about the shooter at the massage parlors, the massage parlor pluses. Obviously that's been a big national story.
Hey,
Been
hold on, Rob,
highlighted.
Rob, 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 Rob. Could you back that up a little bit? You were cutting out there for the.
I was cutting. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. No,
What I
my
was
for
saying.
some reason my mic got turned down. So
Oh, all right. Well,
probably couldn't hear me.
that's all right. What I was saying was that we live in an era of a tale of two stories with the media or with our media class, and obviously, like a big story that we've talked about was the shooter of the at those massage parlor pluses. They were sex parlors, by the way,
Yeah.
but obviously a very very tragic story, but it was made a national news and obviously is was being highlighted for obvious reasons for which we've covered on several episodes of this show. But what not long after that we have another instance of another young group of and the guy is I think was pretty young, the guy that shot up the those massage parlors. um but what gets another story that doesn't get highlighted, which is also just as tragic, just as awful, is I think it was in DC, where these two young black teenagers uh, carjacked and killed this Uber Eats driver. And I mean, there's footage of the whole thing, and horrific. And the, I mean, watching the footage and watching the whole thing, it's like this is honestly like to me it's just as horrible as what happened at those parlors. But that story, I think, got maybe like a couple hours of coverage, and then it got buried. I mean, it's probably like a local story in DC, maybe, but nationally, which it should be nationally, no, yeah, CNN didn't even bother covering that.
Mhm.
And you look at that, it's like, and you can't help but wonder. Um, you look at the races of the people involved. Oh well, it's black, some black female teenagers. Can't do that. But oh, this guy's a white guy. We have to highlight that story, make and kind of ramp up the rhetoric and the fervor of the American public.
Right,
And
race baiting.
yeah, well, and here's the other thing too about that. Like another one that's also very similar that's not getting a whole lot of coverage is which happened I think like within like a couple of days of that shooting at the massage parlor. There was another shooting at a grocery store,
Right, in
and they were
Boulder.
like a lot of the media class and the Twitter and the political class were saying like, oh, this is white supremacy, and
Yeah, and I think, I
we
think the vice president's niece even weighed in and calling it
yeah.
like, called it like white supremacy. It's like, oh, another white man goes on a shooting spree, and then until they find out that he was Syrian born.
And I guarantee in their mind they're like, fuck, it's not a white guy. It's like, and that
Yeah,
they want it so bad to be a white, and then it's like, oh well no, maybe this wasn't true, but it's like, oh well, it's yeah, I got that wrong, but it we need to deal with this problem. It's like,
right, right.
no,
Like even if it doesn't, it turns out to be like a minority. They still categorize it as being caused by like white supremacy ideology or whatever.
yeah, right.
Because white people like have subjugated or somehow discriminated against minorities for so long that it's like it like broke something in their brains to make them go after their fellow minorities or whatever.
Exactly. Also, another kind of tale of two stories. We
But
all
just really quickly, to I mean, I think what you're about to say it fits to what I'm about to say, but like or what we just talked about, it's just like the whole like what is it, like the whole like stop Asian hate hashtag. Have you noticed it's kind of dropped out of fashion now to point out Asian hate, because especially because they're trying to make, I forget, there was a recent one, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was an article written recently by someone by the name of like Jennifer Ho. I know, very 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 poor, very unfortunate last name, but Jennifer Ho, and then like she was saying how you know whites are attacking Asians at a disproportionate rate, but if you look at all of the mugshots, it is nearly exclusively black people who are attacking
yep.
Asian people. And if you notice, like the trend of the hashtag Stop Asian Hate has like nearly cratered. Like nobody's talking about that because the every single time that there's an attack, it's near. I don't want to say exclusively, but nearly exclusively done by a black person.
Well, yeah, because even like days after like the whole the hashtag movement and all that stuff, there was some like there was I don't know if she was, I don't remember if she was like Chinese or whatever. Like I didn't get all that information on like her where what her
Yeah, her
ethnicity
ethnic
was.
background here.
Yeah, her ethnic background, but like this like, oh, it was this guy who was on parole after I think after
Wait,
like
what was that?
17 years. There was this black guy who was on parole after like I think like 17
Oh,
years, killed his mom, and just kicked the shit out of this Asian woman. Where's
mhm.
that story?
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
there's
that
no
story
there was no
lasted about
follow up
10
to
minutes.
that, and also it happened. I forget what kind of business this was, but there was like these two big black like security guard guys who watched it go down and didn't intervene. And then
They
after
closed
that guy
the
stomped the shit out
door.
of her, they didn't go to her to try and render aid. They went to the front door and just closed it and walked back inside. I mean,
Yeah.
I think those guys got fired from their jobs, but it's like
God, I
no one is talking about that.
Yeah, I mean that story got buried. I wasn't even gonna bring up that story initially until like, but your point is like, what the fuck? That's. I mean, but this is the stuff that like you and I have been talking about for what, like at least like a year and a half, 2 years,
Right. I mean,
and it's like, but like you
especially
have all
yeah.
these.
That's why it's like I do not respect any of like these so-called like Asian influencers who are coming out with like the hashtag don't
Fuck those
stop
people.
using the hashtag stop Asian hate, because it's like, okay, where was
Where
this
were you?
hashtag last like year and a half ago when Asian students were being discriminated against from colleges. Where was this hashtag when Google literally put out I mean, it was leaked, but put out a memo to internally saying, yeah, don't hire any whites or Asian males.
Yeah,
Why is it only after like people or there's like there's physical um, uh, harm being physical harm being done to Asian people that you now all of a sudden like, oh, look at all look at this all this Asian hate. It's like there's been Asian hate. Where the fuck have you been?
yeah, because those people don't care. They don't care about their own race. They don't care
Mm-hmm.
about like, just like there's a lot, honestly, like a lot of those BLM like leaders and activists, they don't they don't believe that, honestly, like, or like Al Sharpton. Those guys are racist. They don't give a fuck about the
Yeah,
black people.
yeah. I mean, we'll eventually get there too.
We're getting to that
But
point, but
yeah,
the other point, another story too, that like obviously we all know about what happened on January 6th at the Capitol, like all the, the supposed insurrection or erection, if you ask Chuck Schumer,
mm-hmm.
it's, but what's the story? The like not a few months later, you have another person that like ends up doing some damage over at the Capitol, and they talked about that story for about like 2 seconds, and because the guy turned out
Right.
to be some wacky the Nation of Islam, and he was black, that
Yeah,
buried that story.
like an acolyte of Louis Farrakhan.
Yeah, buried that story. Like that was gone after like
Right.
two
But
minutes.
then yes, similar pattern. Everyone jumped to conclusions and said like it was a white guy.
Yeah, it and yeah, and even like that the whole January 6th thing. There is
Mm-hmm.
so much stuff that hit, like as far as the death total and like how people died, who died. A lot of that stuff was manipulated, and like a lot of quote unquote facts were put out that like were not true at all.
Right.
Um,
What was it? Like that officer that died. They claimed that he was bludgeoned to death by some
fire
insurrectionists with a
extinguisher.
fire extinguisher. But it
No,
turns out like yeah, he had like a heart attack or something. Like he was
he had
texting
a
with his
stroke.
brother. Yeah, he was texting with his brother like 2 hours after like the incident. He actually even made it all the way to the police station, the precinct. And he
Yeah,
was like, he was texting with family members, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm fine, everything's good. And then it wasn't until like a day that evening that he passed away.
buried. That another thing that was buried. Nobody talks about that. No legacy media outlet is talking about that at all.
No, of course not.
It doesn't help the narrative.
Doesn't help the narrative. Doesn't push the narrative forward, so it gets buried.
But yeah, it's and you when you dig into like the actual stories, like all this stuff, like just you'll see this all over. You'll see it all over the place.
Hmm.
and uh,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
can't tell me.
just really quickly, yeah. I mean, just recently, my family is starting to get on me about not getting the vaccine or whatever. Um, but and my cousin, bless her heart, she let the entire in our family cacao group, she let everyone know that her church was gonna be offering the vaccine to what is it, 16 and plus years old. Um, and it was the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Flat,
Okay,
Fast forward to today, and the what is it? The CDC or the government is now uh, telling people not to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
yeah,
Yeah, because what is it like? Because the effect, like I think there's a blood clot. There's a blood clotting issue. A lot of people
that
have been
and
getting blood
that
clots.
yeah, and that's why I'm like, see, and this is why like because every once in a while, like Joyce, like I think she like is coming more towards our side, but then she
Hmm.
kind of she's kind of like a reed in the wind. Sometimes she
Yeah, yeah,
sways
yeah, yeah. Right.
like, oh no, we got to get things like, no, we're not. Eventually, yes, because I think to be honest, I think she should probably get it eventually because
Hmm.
her immune system is not great.
Hmm.
But I'll be damned if I put that shit in my body because, and at the very least, I want to wait because, God, I mean, just, and this is just, well, obviously that news report came out, but anecdotally, on just on what I've seen personally,
Hmm.
my parents are fine. That's great. That's great. My parents got the
Yeah,
vaccine. They're
yeah. I
all
mean,
good to
my
go.
yeah, my parents, both my parents and my sister got it.
Yeah,
So
my
and they
grandmother
both got,
got it.
yeah, and they're fine,
My
thank
grandmother,
God.
she's fine. Uh, but people who are like within like our age range, they're not doing so hot with it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, yeah. There's like people, I mean, just I mean, not specifically with the Johnson & Johnson one, but I remember early, when it first like was, when the vaccine was first dropped, there's, the people were getting like that Bell's palsy thing, like where half their face, started to droop or whatever. It's like
Yeah,
that wasn't a red flag to you, and then and then and then more and more people were having these adverse reactions to it, and it's like that's not a red flag to you. And then now, with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine saying like, oh yeah, like there's a lot of people are getting blood clots. It's like you know
yeah. It just it worries me. I'm
yeah, I
not
mean,
gonna
this is
put something in
still
my
like
body.
still too new. This is like this supposed vaccine is way too new. I mean, Johnson & Johnson aside, like I think is more of like a traditional vaccine, but still, it's like it was developed within 9 months. And I mean, and again, I'm gonna stress this. And right now, YouTube is trying to throttle us, but um, what is it? The Pfizer and Moderna ones, they're not even traditional vaccines. They're literally new technology. It's gene
Right.
manipulation technology, and like it's crazy because like the CDC, like someone from the CDC, you probably won't be able to find this on YouTube. You probably have to go onto like some like alt sites, but like she like went into detail discussing what this vaccine was, like talking about like how it's like uses messenger RNA to like tell
Yeah.
your to go in and like kind of like to rewire DNA, and it's covered in like this nanolipid uh, casing, so like your body doesn't have like what is it, antibody reaction to it to fight it. So it's like they're literally using nanotechnology. This is new technology. A year ago, this supposed vaccine or the so-called vaccine was only theory, was only theoretical. There was no practical applications of of this so-called vaccine. At least the
Yeah,
ones being put out by Moderna and Pfizer.
and I'm sure like there's gonna come a point where like that might be a good thing, but I ain't gonna be the guinea pig that's gonna like work out the kinks of that shit.
Right. Yeah. There's no long-term studies for these vaccines. Like they literally came up with it in 9 months. Like what long-term studies could they have possibly done for it?
Well, and even like what so far from like um the people that are getting it, it's when we with the the virus, the pandemic, obviously was affecting older people more aggressively than like people our age and younger. But then when it comes to the vaccine, it's actually helping older people. Whereas, like for us, it's a lot of people like our age and younger are having very adverse effects to it. That's so to me, it feels like there is no there's no way I'm putting that shit in my body, and
Mm.
two, uh, I'm gonna wait this out. Honestly, like if I don't have to get it, I ain't getting it. And that
Right. Yeah. And I was
no,
like, yeah, and that was one of the reasons why I told my parents like I wasn't gonna get it. It's like there's no need. There's like no compulsion for me to get it.
yeah,
You
and
know.
I
It's
will clarify, I am not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not. I'm just
neither am I. I mean,
yeah.
certain certain vaccines.
I've gotten a lot of vaccinations. I've gotten polio to the TB shot, all that shit. But
Mhm.
and I even I was having this discussion a little bit on Sunday with Dan the Man and Santa Claus Daryl, and
Mhm.
I was telling him it's like we were talking about just the flu shot itself, not
Mhm.
obviously not about like um, the COVID vaccination, but I'm like every fucking flu
Hold
shot
on.
I
I'll be
get
right back.
sick
Keep
as
going. Hold on. Keep going.
I'm sorry. No, I was saying it's like every time I get the flu shot, I get sick as a dog, and it's just I don't want to why would I if I'm not showing any symptoms, I'm not getting sick, why would I be putting this stuff in my body, especially when it comes to this COVID thing, like why in God's name am I haven't gotten sick, haven't gotten COVID, haven't tested positive in any sense of the word. Why am I injecting this thing in my body? It doesn't make sense, and especially because the government is like kind of really pushing this thing, and there's talks of vaccine passports, and if you don't get the vaccine, you're not going to be allowed into these things, and it's like yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do it. I'm sorry that it raises my antenna, like it just it bothers me to a great deal, and I don't like being forced to do something that is unnecessary. I'm not going to be manipulated and forced to put something in my body that to be honest, I don't think belongs in there.
Right.
At the very least, if I want to wait it out for God's sakes for a few months,
Mhm.
like let other people be the guinea pig.
Right. And I mean, yeah. So far, like it's been a year. It's been over a year, and I've been going out, but I'm not being reckless. I'm not licking doorknobs or nothing. Um,
I
so
mean,
there's
we've
no.
missed times, but that's about it.
Yeah, I know. Awful sometimes. But yeah, it's like this push to like get this experimental treatment. That's why I'm not gonna call it a vaccine anymore. It's a treatment. It's an experimental treatment. Um, and they it's so baffling because they think that I don't like because government is so to quote Andrew Breitbart, culture or politics is downstream from culture. And right
Right.
now, the culture is, no one gives a shit about celebrities, but they're still using celebrities as like the Judas goat to get people to get this vaccine. It's like like what is it like Run DMC recently put out like a rap song talking about get your jab, it's the right thing to do or
Oh
whatever.
God, that
Yeah,
was
it's so
cringeworthy.
yeah, it was so yeah. I bristled so hard. But
As a
yeah,
Run
it's
DMC fan, I was like, "What the fuck is this shit?"
yeah, seriously. But yeah, I mean, I try to put things uh, I always try to come at topics in a slightly different way. Um, And so I think I come up with a really good analogy to present to people, so it's like they don't immediately like shut me down. But it's like, imagine there was like a sudden rise in people getting sunburns, and so like for some reason like the normal sunscreen wasn't working, and then all of a sudden, in a very short time, the government, or some company came up with a new type of sunscreen, and they said, yeah, everyone should be using the sunscreen. It's like so this sunscreen is going to protect me from getting sunburns. It's like, actually, no, it's not going to protect you from sunscreens, but you should still use it. It's like,
No.
would you use it if they said that you should use it, but it won't necessarily protect you from getting sunburned. It might lessen the severity of the burn.
No.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. But that's what they're doing with this vaccine, because they're saying, because even Fauci said, like, oh, like, even if you get the vaccine, you should still wear a mask and you should still like social distance. Like, then what is the point of the vaccine? Because the point of the vaccine is to be protected, or to protect others from getting it.
Because if he says that we can go back to normal, he doesn't get any more TV spots, and we don't get to hear from our beloved Dr. Fauci. A guy who hasn't been a practicing doctor in 40 years.
Right. Yeah. He hasn't been a clinician in in about 40 years. But yeah, so just imagine, like, the sunscreen analogy. Just apply the vaccine to sunscreen. If all of a sudden sunburns were on the rise, and then none of the regular sunscreens were working, and then all of a sudden they came out with this new sunscreen, and in 4 months, and they said, like, oh yeah, they don't wear the sunscreen, then you can go outside, you can do whatever you want. And it's like, oh yeah, so this new sunscreen is going to protect me. It's like, actually, no, just reduce the severity of the burn, but you're still gonna get burned. It's like, well, then why should I use this new sunscreen?
Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, like a lot of the things I've been researching, and like like doctors I've been watching videos from, a lot of them, I like to listen to everything, but a lot of them, I hate to say this, but there is a consensus saying that if you get the sickness and then recover from it, you're way better off than if you were to get the vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, because like you have like the antibodies to fight it off.
Right, exactly, and that you're not in, yeah. And again, like, I'm sorry I called it a vaccine, because I said I was gonna call it for what it really was. It's a treatment, and so yeah, like getting getting the coronavirus, and then getting COVID-19, and then recovering from it and getting those antibodies is much better than getting the vaccine. So if anything, people should, I mean, especially young people, they should be wanting to get this sickness. I early on I joked saying, like, yeah, it's like, oh, it's like, especially when I'm wearing a mask. People ask me, oh, why aren't you wearing your mask? Like, it's like, man, I'm trying to get COVID-19. I'm trying to get them antibodies, yo.
Right. Well, and the crazy thing is, like, uh, it's one thing of like, okay, it's something that's like really serious. We're getting it, yada yada yada. But then, like, now you have like of all these, the Twitterati and the media class and the political class that are in power now, who are saying, like, not 6 months ago we're saying, like, there's no way that I'm getting that vaccine of, quote, this is Trump's vaccine, getting that. Now it's like, you have to get the vaccine.
Famously,
If you
our
don't get the
new
vaccine,
vice president.
you this or that. Like, it's the tale of two stories once again.
Yeah, I mean, most famously by our new vice president. She said, like, "Oh yeah, it's Trump's vaccine. If Trump says I have to get it, no way am I putting that in my body." But guess what? She was the first in line to get it as soon, when she and her running mate were elected.
Right. Well, I mean, you even have to look at like Dr. Fauci himself, who, that guy is a tale of two stories. That guy is flopped on every issue. He has taken every position known to man about this whole
Oh yeah.
pandemic.
Oh yeah. People. They have goldfish memories, but not us. I remember distinctly his 60-minute, interview saying like, oh yeah, it might keep a droplet from getting on somebody else, but it's not gonna. It doesn't provide full protection. But then like 2 weeks later, all of a sudden it's like, no, everyone has to mask up right now.
And the guy, like, literally, I mean, when the guy first started talking, I was like, this guy is full of shit. And it's like and then like I was okay. Let's look up Dr. Fauci. Let's see what he's done. And he was part of the AIDS the AIDS epidemic. Everything is like, he was wrong then too. Okay, fuck that guy because he doesn't know a goddamn thing.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. The gay community, they fucking hate. They hate Anthony Fauci. They fucking hate that guy because one, he held up the AIDS treatment.
Yeah.
Which then allowed tons of people who had AIDS to die, and then also he was the one that, I don't know, through negligence or something, allowed AIDS tainted blood to get into the system, for donations, which then infected, countless, thousands of innocent people.
That's I mean you look at that stuff, it's like, Jesus Christ, how is this guy not only does he have a job, but like, honestly, with shit like that, like, you're either really fucking incompetent and should be fired, or if you did that on purpose, you should be in
In
prison.
jail. Yeah. He's the highest paid government official in the
Yeah.
he gets more money than the president.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, he gets paid more than the president of the United States.
I
Let
honestly,
that sink in there. Let that information sink in there.
yeah, honestly, like, this is probably the one, one of the, there's a couple things, but one of the things that Trump should have done is fired his ass because he's an idiot.
Yeah. 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 As much as I think that Trump did good, he shit the bed a lot too.
There's a
Even
few
like
things,
even
but
even
there's a lot that, like, the
recently.
hangers on that, like, kind of just, because these guys are like, they're the cockroaches of the world, that they just hang on to. God, they hang
Yeah,
on
I
to
mean
life.
they're vestigial. They're literally vestigial. They're the vestigial extremities.
And to be
They
honest,
serve
like,
no they serve no purpose, but they're still there.
I mean, he's hung on through Reagan, Bush,
Yeah,
and
wait, because he came in.
5 presidents.
Yeah,
Six,
Reagan installed him. So Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Jr., Obama, Trump. That's 6 presidents.
7 now with
Seven
Biden.
now with Biden. Yeah,
Jesus
Hong Kong.
Christ, dude, that guy has been. How? Oh, it just. Oh God. How the. I
I
just.
get it. I get it.
Fuck, dude. How many people has this guy killed with his fucking incompetence? I mean, we have a government of. I mean, to be honest, we have a nation of people who fail upward and seem to be in power for some reason. It's God. I just. We'll have to do a whole episode of Dr. Fauci. I'm gonna do a whole research on this jackass and why he does not deserve the accolades that he. I look it through, like, my YouTube feed, because I get, like, these things, that they're not in, like, anything that I've ever searched, but, like, I have, obviously, like, the channels I've subscribed to, the stuff that, like, is, like, closely related to those channels that, like, I'm suggested, which is great.
Right.
Actually, found channels that way. But then there's this other whole bar that is just COVID search, and I look at all these channels. Oh, we're talking about Dr. Fauci. talking with Dr. Fauci. Oh, Dr. Fauci's talking about this. Fuck no, I don't want to like listen to Dr. Fauci. I've heard him too much on CNN and all these goddamn channels. That it's like this. And the guy like loves the attention. He's a political animal. He's like Andrew Cuomo, just like in another disguise. The
Yeah.
guy the guy doesn't care about what's right. He just wants like the attention. It's like, and he gets paid a fuck ton of money. Just uh. But then it's funny because you actually talk to real doctors, people who practice medicine, all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, that guy's full of shit.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Even Carrie Ellis, who invented the
Yeah,
PCR, who invented the PCR test. There's a clip of him calling Fauci a moron.
yeah, and I'm like, listen, I'm not a huge Rand Paul fan, but that guy at least has been like, the one thing he's been doing is calling that guy a fucking moron, and like he doesn't know anything. Thank
Yeah,
God. Well, and he's a doctor too, which people don't realize, or a
yeah,
former doctor at least.
yeah.
So it's not like he's completely oblivious to what it takes, but
Right.
you know
Yeah,
it's
Rand Paul is not just like a layperson. He knows his shit.
yeah. And I look at guys like there's another like doctor that like I'm actually a fan of. He's a former NASCAR announcer, Dr. Jerry Punch. Another doctor, a real doctor, who it's just the guy like actually saves people's lives. He doesn't it's he's definitely saved a ton of like NASCAR drivers' lives. It's
Mhm.
but this guy just God, how the fuck has he survived for 7 fucking presidents? It just God, it oh God,
Yeah.
it just this is the shit that like keeps me up at night because I can't. We have a great country, and yet these fucking people like survive like leeches on the country somehow. They've never had a real job. They've never done anything in their life that of any consequence, and yet they just suck the country dry.
Yeah.
Ah, ah.
I mean, the only like because I know originally you also talked about like the vaccine passport and everything. I think the only way out of that is like not to covet what they have, or what they supposedly have to offer. Because
No,
it's like,
yeah,
you can't go traveling, outside, you can't go traveling if you don't have it. Like, good, I don't want to go anywhere.
fuck those places. I don't
Especially
care.
yeah, it's like, oh, you can never go to like Europe or whatever. Yeah, that's fine. It's like it's full of
I
Muslims
don't want
and
to go to
it's a
Europe.
shithole. Yeah, it's like full of Muslims and it's a shithole now. Who wants to go there?
About the only place I want to go in Europe is Hungary because they fucking hate all the they don't let any of those people
Yeah,
in,
yeah. Poland and Hungary are the only base countries in Europe.
and they're beautiful places. I want to go to those places. But you know
Yeah, I
what?
mean, so yeah, it's like like people saying like, oh no, we have to have more black and brown people in Germany. It's like I don't want to see, I don't want that. I want to see fucking big breasted blue blonde hair, blue eyed German chicks.
I want to see a big tray, like a big buxom German chick serving me like beer on a giant stein, on a tray.
Exactly, right? It's like because that's the real denigration. Because it's like saying because tell what is it? Tell a German that they're the same as a Frenchman. And
Fuck
see and
no.
see yeah and see the reaction. See the reaction. Tell tell
Yeah,
uh, tell an Italian that he's the same as a British person.
hell, I mean, even in Italy, it's like if you tell a Sicilian, they're like, "Oh, you're just an Italian." It's like they're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
happy.
Tell a Sicilian that he's the same as someone from like Venice or Florence, and they'll fucking knife you.
Yeah, Sicily is not a friendly.
But yeah, so yeah, like if I'm to offer anyone, a way out of this, is, especially like with like the whole vaccine passport or whatever. Just like fine, call their bluffs. Be prepared to rain down fire on your own position. That's the only way, because it's like, oh, then you'll never get to go anywhere. It's like, that's fine. I don't want to go anywhere. Everywhere else is a shithole. It's like hell.
Exactly.
And then like in LA, it's like, okay, fine. Everywhere. I already live in a shithole. Why would I want to go see another shithole?
Yeah, I mean, we live in Bum Piss Central. Our lovely mayor and governor.
Yeah, exactly. It's like why would I want to leave this shithole for another shithole? Yeah, so
I mean,
who cares?
like SoCal has become a giant Hooverville, for because I mean they have taken in pretty much I think like every like homeless person in the country,
Mm-hmm.
or have I mean it's we didn't get rid of our insane asylums. I mean they're just outside now because that's
Pretty much, yeah,
essentially
because they emptied them all out. Yeah, because it's like somehow better for them to live out on the street than to live within the
free
confines of
ending.
an institution.
Because they watch a scary movie called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and those terrible nurse Ratchets, like they're so terrible.
Right.
And that was kind of like the one of the few problems of the Reagan administration. But to be honest, like, was the homeless problem this bad? Like, it's never been this bad. Like, I mean,
No.
everywhere you go is just.
Yeah, I mean like pretty much every single off ramp on every major freeway in Southern California, there's homeless encampments.
Dude, it's not even just the on ramps there anymore. They're fucking everywhere. They're
Yeah.
on like I every time I come home, there's like they have somehow like hacked into like the light poles to get like electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're like by like one of the old movie theaters I used to go to. They've completely lined that street.
Mm-hmm.
They're all over Chatsworth. It's just
Oh yeah.
I mean by like because right like where you live and like where I work,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I've seen
there,
it. Yeah, whenever I go to the store, I see it. Yeah.
dude, it's insane. It's never
Mm.
it was never this bad. Like 10 years ago, not a problem. This was never a problem 10 years ago.
No, it wasn't.
So
Yeah, I mean,
and
are we saying that there weren't homeless people 10 years ago? No, of course not. That's not what we're saying. We're saying
no,
that the severity or the amount of people now living on the street has become. I mean, my cousin who used to live in Koreatown, um, uh, the sidewalks on the sidewalks where she lived, it was all taken over by tents, without exception.
yeah,
Without
you
exception.
cannot walk. You
And you
cannot
cannot
walk
you
there.
cannot walk. You can't walk.
At night, I will never walk out there at night. Fuck that place. No.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's and for some reason, but allowing them to sleep out on the street is the compassionate thing to do. I
It's
mean,
it's not.
I don't see it, but
Yeah, and the problem is like there's a lot of obviously like drug issues. Okay, yeah, there's that. There are mental. I mean, a lot of these people are fucking insane, like literally insane, like clinically insane. They cannot function in real life. I'm not saying
right.
like I'm not like a Nazi, like I want them dead. Like no, I want them to get the treatment that they need.
Hmm.
Um, you have guarantee that the percentage of like people who are it's financial like ruin that are just out in the streets is actually probably very little. Yeah.
Right, very
A lot
low.
of it, a lot of it, is drugs, and a lot of it is just mental insanity.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think I think a good portion of the homeless are former, residents of institutions that that they just like shuttered and like just like, oh well, like no more money, so you got here here's your Coleman tent and good luck.
Yeah, because I think if I remember correctly, like from what Dan told me, because his dad used to work in like one of those institutions,
Uh-huh.
and like I said, like it's one of the few failures of the Reagan administration was like kind of like it's kind of like we got this man, it's kind of bad, like we should probably like kind of cut funding to these places. And yeah, it's just like I honestly that's no, because it's not like the institutions ended, like we just let them go outside.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah,
lot
open air.
there's
Yeah,
been a
open air asylums. Open air asylums.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that have actually been like killed because and it's not really the fault of the mentally insane. So
Mm.
they have hallucinations. They have who the fuck knows what's going on in their mind, but they're punching people, stabbing people,
Yeah,
doing weird.
what is it? There's a bunch of stories recently. Like that lady in San Dimas who was just like walking her dogs and like like this crazy like this deranged homeless person like stabbed her, and then like here in like West LA there was another story of of a man just outside his house and he got stabbed by a random homeless person.
Yeah, it's just and I'm actually very concerned. Obviously, there's a lot of places like while I'm walking around. To be honest, I'm already kind of paranoid as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I try to like steer clear because I who knows, especially these people that talk themselves. You see
Mm-hmm.
them like yelling at a payphone or a wall. They don't know what's going on. And it's kind of, it breaks my heart a little bit because obviously we're Christians, we're supposed to be compassionate. Yeah, but I don't have throwing money at them is not the solution, and I don't have the tools to care for
Right.
these
Yeah,
people.
and some of the times they'll turn down food. Like I remember one time someone came up to me and was like saying, "Oh, you got a few bucks." I was like, no, but 'cause it kind of mitigate because I kind of by the look of them I can kind of already tell. But I was like, "Oh no, but I can go get you. I can go buy you some food." He's like, "No, man, I don't want any food." It's just
Yeah,
like it's kind of obvious, like that they want it for drugs. But then also there's like some people like there's some uh, only in America could there be fat homeless people. And I know that sounds mean, but I'm just being honest. There are fat homeless people.
yeah,
So food is not necessary. Food is really not a big issue for them.
you're
And
right.
also, I know because like even through because I mean even through my church's program, the mobile shower ministry. Yeah, there's some homeless people that come by and like yeah they're on the chonker side. You know. And
It's
then like
just
yeah, and like even I even tell like I and they even told me it's like yeah, food is not really that big of an issue because there's places giving out food all the time.
that's it's it breaks my heart and it frustrates me at the same time. It's just because a lot of if it's someone that's like hard on their luck, or they or
Yeah, or if
whatever.
it's like yeah, because
That's
or yeah, like catastrophic family loss, like they their like entire support system was taken out, like both their parents died, or or like like the relative that was like taking care of them was like passed away or whatever, and like they were left to fend for themselves. Yeah.
but I don't have the to help someone that has a huge drug problem, or like
Hmm.
has like their brain is fucked up.
Yeah, there's like there's nothing we can do. I mean,
And that's not like that's well, the drug problem, possibly that, that's their fault. But like people who's like, it's just the brain chemistry is all fucked up. That's not their
Mhm.
fault. But at the same time, I can't help them, and I don't know, like I don't have the tools for that.
Right, right, right. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, because as ordinary people, we can only do so much. And dealing with people with psychiatric problems or chemical imbalances. We're just, we could, try and like just love them as much as possible, but it's just at the end of the day, we can only that can only go so far.
Right. I mean, and God love them. There are people that do. They have that heart. They have those tools to help out. But even then, like the resources are limited because,
Hmm.
like I said, there's no place to harm them. Because they need help. But like it's a full time help. It's not like some, oh hey, here's $5. Oh, problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of went on a little tangent there, but
Sorry, it just there's just there's been a lot I've been thinking about this week, and it's just like I'm just so frustrated with everything, and just it just God, I'm frustrated. But you know what? Despite all that, despite all like the news, everything, like life is good. Find what's good in your life. There's a lot of positives in your life. If you're watching this broadcast, there's a lot of positives. Okay, like don't yeah, even as like conservatives or whatever, like there's a lot of problems, but you know what? There's a lot of great things too, and don't let these people who are trying to manipulate things, that are trying to take your freedoms away. Don't let those people win.
yeah,
Don't give them the satisfaction.
yeah. I mean, one of the ways is just don't want their shit. Don't covet what they're offering. You know,
Exactly.
and also a really good way is to stop watching legacy media. I mean, that's done wonders for me. Like, I mean, every once in a while, like when I'm with my parents, they're still kind of under that spell, and they still think that they're actually getting information. Uh, but it's just like I can't listen to it anymore. It's like I know it's like lies. Like even
It's
like because
garbage.
I've been keeping up with the Derek Chauvin stuff, and recently, like some like I forget, like some sort of doctor or whatever came out and said like, yeah, it like his death was caused by the fentanyl. Like there's no other way, like because there was no marks found on him. There was, the only bruising or whatever that was found was like kind of like was on like on George Floyd's back. Nothing was, no trauma was found like in his throat or trachea. But yeah, it was like, but the only thing that could have led to his what's the word? Hypoxia or not asphyxiation. He wasn't asphyxiated, but I think it was like hypoxia, lack of oxygen, was due to the fentanyl, which does reduce lung capacity, which does reduce the amount of oxygen that a person is capable of taking in. I mean, it's the same way that Michael Jackson died. The same way that the Prince died is because well, I don't know about Michael Jackson. I think it was something else, but Prince for sure died of a fentanyl overdose, and it was because like fentanyl relaxes you so much that like eventually like it just slows down your respiratory rate, and you'll eventually just die of hypoxia.
Well, like I said, if you I mean, speaking of the Chauvin trial, God, if you listen to legacy media, oh, prosecution's killing it.
Yeah,
But
no,
no,
exactly. Dude, they are fucking up like crazy.
God, they're
There's no
awful.
way that they're gonna get a conviction. And I mean, maybe that's the point. And so maybe and like there's like people, particularly on the BLM side, saying like if Chauvin isn't convicted, then Minneapolis is gonna burn
There
in
is
no
no way.
uncertain in no uncertain terms. That's what they're saying.
This is one of those things. There's no way that this is a fair trial because Minneapolis like pretty much like demonize like the politicians in Minneapolis demonize this guy. I mean and BLM is saying it's like no matter what, like if this man does not end up in prison, we're gonna burn this fucking city to the ground. And you have a guy. I mean, and they're trying to try him for like second-degree murder, which is just God preposterous. Like they're never
Right,
gonna
because
get that conviction.
because they have to prove intent,
Right. At the very least,
which they
like
never
maybe
will
if
be.
they went at, like manslaughter or something,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe you have a shot at that, barely, but like you have a shot. But and
Right.
they, the prosecution has fucked up this case so badly,
Right. I mean,
and
even even
they're
like the witness, like
the witnesses that the defense has called. They're like, oh, can we have you on our team? It's like, come on.
right, like
But
even like
you'll
what is it? The LAPD officer that came out and basically said like, oh yeah, Derek Chauvin, he actually did like the minimum. Like he didn't even do like he didn't even do the minimum. Like there was more things that Derek Chauvin could have done
he
to
was justified in doing a lot more that he didn't do.
under
And
the policies of the Minneapolis PD. But he didn't. He showed restraint. And then also like what is it the 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 prime witness of the prosecution, was it George Floyd's friend who was with him? Like he pleaded the fifth.
regular.
Yeah, he was a drug dealer. He pleaded the fifth because he was just saying if he admits to something, then he himself could be charged with murder because he was the one that supplied George Floyd with the drugs.
Yeah. And he's in prison too. It's just God.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
if you watch
some conspiracy. There's like some theorists. I don't want to say conspiracy theory, but some theorists who say that potentially the prosecution is fucking this up on purpose so that there is a response from the BLM people. I
dude,
mean, I
that's
wouldn't
gonna
go
happen.
that far, but
To be honest, no,
it's
I'm
gonna
not going
happen.
that far. It's just they're incompetent and they're trying to make something like like I said, they're trying to manipulate something that isn't there. But the problem is here's what it is. This goes back to media manipulation. They want like a certain narrative that they can like create more news to draw eyes, and so they're gonna you know play it up like the prosecution's doing a bang up job, but in reality they're not because they don't have a fucking case. That's the problem. And the thing is, and what people don't realize, all this shit is public. You can look it up, but they're not going to do that because you have people that want to burn shit down. You have a media that wants to manipulate stuff for clicks and likes and uh, eyes on their news coverage. And if stuff doesn't get burnt to the fucking ground, they don't have uh, ratings. That's what they're going for.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, interestingly enough, just today I saw a clip of CNN covering like the first night of riots or whatever, and then this black man who lived in the neighborhood, he basically was calling them out. It's like this is all your fault. You're the one. You're making this worse by showing all of this, and he was like calling them out straight to their face, and he was right because it's like they only show you like the scene from like a certain perspective. And so, all they, you don't, you they know that they won't get any view. The ratings will fall if they just show like peaceful black people with like, just like marching in the street with their fists raised up in the air. They're not. That's not gonna get the eyeballs. They have to show the the rioters on jumping on top of police cars. Throwing bricks and shit.
Yeah, I mean, this is just there. It's just yeah, it's this is why, honestly, if you cannot trust the legacy media, stop. If you're seeing them, so many there's better coverage like anywhere else that's not like Fox News and CNN, MSNBC. Fuck those people. They don't care about you. All they care about is, there's a lot of people out there that they're doing yeoman's work that like care about the truth, that are being like thrown into the ground, silenced because.
And just as a starting point, you could keep watching the legacy media. All right, you could keep watching it, but watch at least one non-legacy source, just one, and see and start comparing and contrasting and see what happens.
Your life will change.
Your life will be your life will be remarkably better off. Even if you have just one mainstream media source, it'll do wonders for you. I promise.
Well, I don't have anything else to say on that. I've reached catharsis on that. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's getting kind of late, and the review for Predestination is pretty long, so I think we can forego the second news item. I mean, unless you want to talk about it very briefly.
We'll push that the next week.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that'll do it for us tonight. We'll leave you with what is it, the movie review,
with the fun part.
With the fun part. The fun part. I know. Yeah, if you haven't already checked out yet from because of all of our rant, please enjoy our review. It's very good. It's very good. I promise.
If you haven't seen this movie, it's great. You really should watch it. I was actually surprised with I was not expecting to like this movie, and I really did. So I highly recommend it. You gotta watch it. It's a lot of fun. It's a mind bender, but check it out.
Yeah, you'll probably have to watch it a few times.
I've watched it like 3 times. Yeah, like I had to do a lot of rewatching on this one just because. And I think they have like if you look on the Wikipedia page, they do actually have a chart of like how everything kind of plays out a little bit, but it's just fun like watching it several times.
Right.
It's definitely Christopher Nolan inspired.
Yeah, definitely getting that flavor. All right, guys, that's it for us tonight. Hope you enjoyed. Please stay tuned for the movie review, and we'll see you all next week. What's going on there, jerk faces? Welcome to Nocturnal Transmissions. I know this is a little bit strange for you because this would be where we do the movie review, and usually we'd be doing it through, remotely using the digital set. But this week's guest is regular on the podcast, the main podcast, is Dan the Man. And as you know, that it's guest month, and as you know, guests pick the movie to review, and so Dan has picked the movie for this month, and that is, or this week, and that is Predestination, starring Ethan Hawke.
You got the synopsis of the film.
Mm-hmm. Let me hit y'all with the synopsis, and we can get this thing going. A temporal agent embarks on a final time-traveling assignment to prevent an elusive criminal from launching an attack that kills thousands of people. I mean, I think
that sums it up pretty.
That sums it up pretty aptly.
That sums it up well, but as you'll hear from our chat about it, that sums up about the last 30% of the movie.
Right.
So because you don't realize until the 2/3 mark that there's a time travel element at all.
Yeah. Well, and
Well, I think it's the hint is dropped, but it's it's not expressly said.
No, that's true. That's true. You realize that something's going on, but most of the first 70% or so of the movie is devoted to just telling
fleshing out the
what
story.
You think of is they're telling a backstory.
Yeah, it's basically set up for the last the last third of the movie for the payoff.
Yeah. We asked this last week of our other guests, like, what made you decide this film? Like, what was it about this film that's like, oh, we got to watch this?
Right. So I'm a sci-fi fan in general, and often you see so many kind of default sci-fi plots, whether it is, time travel like this or space travel, things like that. That all follow the same arcs. Exactly. And this one was unique and different, not just because how it started, that I wasn't sure I had the right film. It was recommended to me a couple of years ago by a mutual friend, and who definitely said, as it does clearly on the movie description, that it's a sci-fi film. And yet you have no idea, nor do you think that that's the case until well past halfway through the film. So this is unique, and I was thinking of comparisons as we came on to discussing it for this podcast, and I thought of Memento, which is one of
my number 2 favorite film.
Exactly. A classic Christopher Nolan, and one of his first, if not his first big one.
Second, I believe, yeah.
Right, one of an early film. So it's part that. It's partly the movie Gattaca, which I believe you guys
also stars Ethan Hawke.
Exactly, another Ethan Hawke movie and one of my favorites. And I just thought of this morning, there's an aspect of the movie In Time, which is the recent sci-fi film about 4 years ago starring Justin Timberlake.
What? I did not know this. I've not heard about this movie.
Oh, I thought you said you reckon. Oh, well, here we go, jerk faces. We are in for a surprise because this is one that we definitely.
Had I known that, I would have watched it for preparation.
I even thought you had mentioned that. I really thought you had mentioned that. Yeah, I've seen that. I recognize that when I, threw it out as a comparison.
I guess I missed it. I guess I missed that in like our conversation. About it. Yeah.
So for those probably of the three that I named, Memento is definitely a cult classic. Gattaca is even a more specific, less known cult classic, even though it does star. It has an amazing cast because it stars Ethan Hawke, a young Jude Law, and a young Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
So exactly.
Yeah, when she was still like super hot.
Yep. And
I think that movie is where they met.
Oh, really?
Oh, it might be. So I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That makes sense though. Yeah, because that one was made 20 years ago or so.
98,
Gattaca.
I believe.
Yeah, so right.
Yeah.
Roughly. Whereas this movie that we're discussing now, Predestination, was made in 2014, so only 7 years ago.
Wow, only 7 years ago?
Yeah,
Jeez.
right, I know.
That feels like, that was like yesterday. Oh, wait, no, it's not.
Yeah, I know. But the other comparison, by far the most popular of all the analogies I've made, the movie In Time, because it stars Timberlake with a short appearance by Olivia Wilde playing his mother of basically the same age. And why are they the same age? Is because the basic
I have seen In Time.
The basic theme of In Time is that it's a futuristic society in America, but that to replace money as we know it as the currency, time, literal how long you have to live is the new currency.
What the hell?
Okay, what does that mean is that everyone is programmed. You have some electronic chip, they don't really describe it that well, implanted in your heart that gives you a 1 year to live after you turn 25, I believe it is. So
Yes, 25.
from the ages, humans have been genetically engineered, blah, 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 to age mainly the same way you would normally from the infancy
birth
to 25 years old.
Yeah.
Then at 25 years old, you are that age and that physical capability and that look for the rest
Forever.
of your life.
Yeah.
However, the length of the rest of your life is set at 1 year, and that year can be both added and subtracted based on a counter, a clock of sorts that's implanted in your arm. But the actual chip is in your heart. After that year expires and the clocks tick down from year and more years, if you add more years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds.
Right. So the way they pay for things is with units of time. So like a cup of coffee
for my
could
coffee
be
is
like
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay, rent for a month is basically like a week's worth of time.
Yeah.
So you're not losing a full month by having to pay for an apartment for a month, but you're still losing about a week or so.
Wow,
okay,
that's interesting. That's an interesting idea.
Oh, and we'll definitely review that now that I know that you.
We'll have to review that at another time. Yeah,
Right.
that's had I known that. I guess I missed that in our conversation. Otherwise, I would have watched it in preparation for this movie.
So there's no time travel aspect in the movie in time.
Yes.
But there is literally they are gambling and or trading and or stealing. There's a way to steal.
Right.
When somebody gets mugged, they actually steal the opponent's time by a certain arm wrestling type of match is how they
wow, that's interesting.
Predicate stealing time.
That's a very different type of story.
It is
sci-fi wise. That's kind of an interesting idea.
And although that's I'm saying probably because I don't know, based on some old sci-fi story, we'll have to look it up for you jerks. I don't know. And as far as I had seen, it was unique when it came out, like I said, about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, and this is and with Memento, obviously it's Nolan messing with our understanding of time, throughout
perception
the movie,
of time.
perception of time. And honestly, I think it's very appropriate for the main character because his whole perception of time is all fucked up too.
Right. Yeah, so we're basically seeing the movie through his perspective.
Combination of he has amnesia and
short-term memory
loss. Retrograde.
Yep. He can't make new memories,
right?
Which is a great idea, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
And then Gattaca obviously has that great like sci-fi element to it, and it's where
two people
dealing with like genetics too, which also plays a part in this movie.
But interestingly enough, also the idea of predestination and whether or not you can
choose your own fate.
Choose your own fate.
Right. So I mean,
which does tie into this movie, Predestination.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I kind of like obviously there's been many time traveling stories, movies, and
it all goes back to The Time Machine by Victor Hugo, written in the late 1800s.
Right.
Even possibly the 1860s. I'll have to check the date, but it's the latter half of the 19th century is when he wrote that.
Was that Victor Hugo or is it H.G. Wells that wrote that?
Oh, you are probably right.
Time
Machine. Good correction. Is Wells. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Is Wells. I have the.
But Victor Hugo did a lot of gothic kind of stories.
Hugo did some other.
Also another one of the great classic authors.
Right. In addition to Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is definitely Hugo. He also did Les Mis. Those.
One thing is that because Victor Hugo wasn't he like a black man that wasn't he black?
Hugo, I think he was a French guy. Well, we'll check this for you. No,
or he could have been a black Frenchman. But I know Alexander Dumas. He was a.
Oh, it was Alexander Dumas.
Yeah, that's who you're thinking of.
Sorry,
Dumas of the Three Musketeers and Man of the Iron Mask. Yes, that's right.
Anyways, Time Machine.
Count of Monte Cristo. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
but Predestination.
Back to the film du jour.
What I like about it is obviously when we think of like time travel movies, obviously think Back to the Future or like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Like The Time Machine, either book form or the not so great movie.
Yeah.
Or the not so great 5 different remakes of the movie.
Right. And what I like about this to me felt very original, kind of an original idea.
And it doesn't have any real comedy, and it's certainly not the what you might call slapstick comedy that the other things did.
Slapping. It's more of kind of like the ironic humor.
No, there's a few tongue-in-cheek things, but it's almost like I would call it scary irony, and there's certain scary irony
a lot of scary
that can be humorous, but in this case, it's very eye-opening and
Like
this messes with your thinking.
Like the one thing
This
that I
is
would
twisted,
consider
really twisted.
kind of sort of funny about the movie is there's once we finally get past like the backstory, like kind of like setting everything up. There's a guy that's in the bar that's playing the song "I'm Your Own Grandpa."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
you talk about a bit of an Easter egg, which you don't realize yet at that point in the movie. That might be a great tagline for this movie, because the main character, as we find out, is his own father, his own mother, and by definition, his own grandparents.
Yeah, and like he's his own enemy too. In the what ends up being
when we
the
ultimately
case.
find out,
Right. Now, how does that happen? Well, time travel paradox. But setting up that time travel paradox is incredibly twisted in a good way.
Yeah,
and
it's very
fascinating.
intricate. It's very intricate, and it's very fascinating.
Yeah, that's why the setup itself is
it's very
2/3 of the
highly
movie,
important. You
and
need
it
to
is
have
important.
it.
It has to be more than half the movie. I didn't think that at first, but it probably does. Otherwise, the plot just doesn't work. It falls apart.
Absolutely, yeah. If
Yeah,
it, like, 'cause you
the
can't
setup
just,
is the plot.
right,
Okay.
exactly, because you can't just be thrown. Like if they didn't do the setup, then you couldn't just go into the last third of the movie and be like, what? You'd be lost.
The climax when the first two, the young female and the middle-aged, just sex changed male, meet each other. That's the huge climax, right at the 2/3 point. And there's one or two other surprises after that, but that's the huge fall out of your chair moment.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
But no, I like I said, this, as far as storytelling goes, nothing felt like it was like, oh, we could have cut out like this scene or that scene. No,
this is a short movie, by the way. It was based on a short book by the classic sci-fi writer Robert Heinlein in the late 50s.
Right, based off a short story of his, and then and this movie also kind of in a weird way plays homage to that by only being an hour and a half.
Yeah, so it really it feels like it starts slow, and the first half of it is moving pretty slow, and you don't know what it's setting up for. But once it hits, the movie's almost over by then.
Yeah.
But like I said, everything is set up like the way the story is told. I don't think you could tell it any differently.
Yeah, you could.
The cinematography, I think, is done very well. You're not really, when you do the first watching of it, nothing's really given away. And even like obviously like I've watched it like 3 or 4 times since setting up for the review, and like I said, even on those subsequent viewings, it's like you catch like new things, but it's like, oh, okay, I see what they were trying to do there. This is very well crafted.
And the actress who plays the younger and still female version of Ethan Hawke, her name I believe is Sarah Snook, really, really great performance.
Oh yeah,
surprising, because I looked up her IMDb biography, and she's been in a bunch of TV, series and films, but mostly independent and or Australian, where she's from. And so you probably haven't seen her in too much.
No.
Unless you watch the
and I think that also helps. I think that because if you had like some big name actress in it, I think it wouldn't have been able to be I don't think it would have been, the storytelling wouldn't have been as effective, because you just be kind of, because especially if it's like if it was like a Scarlett Johansson or something, you would just see Scarlett Johansson. You wouldn't see like the character.
Yeah.
Even though, interestingly enough, she was up for that role as that transgendered massage parlor.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. But this one, it is really all about the characters. Even Ethan Hawke himself does, a great job not taking away from the real depth of his character. And of course, you realize that, as we were talking about before rewatching the movie in preparation for this episode, this character, if you're still a bit confused, you're going to be confused, period, until you watch the movie. Even if you watch the movie and you're still confused.
I'm still confused.
So yeah, spoilers. This review is definitely a spoiler.
Oh yeah, this review, I don't know how you do it normally with your Nocturnal Transmissions reviews, but this one's
spoiler heavy.
I figure. This one is just impossible to talk about. We're barely making sense, and we're obviously including all the spoilers, because you just have to talk about the plot of this film.
No, you have to. Yeah.
And so the idea, one of the basic ideas, is that it's the opposite of, say, an Eddie Murphy film like Coming to America or The Nutty Professor, where he plays exactly, the clubs,
or Dr. Strangelove,
where Eddie Murphy or in Dr. Strangelove, what's his name,
Peter Sellers
are playing 5 or 8 or 24 different characters in the film, and you can tell it's them. Here you have 4 or 5 different actors if you include the childhood actors,
and
right?
The baby,
yeah, right. There's 2 different teenage actresses. Then there's Sarah Snook, and then there's Ethan Hawke twice. So I guess there's 4, basically, not counting the baby. They are all playing, believe it or not, the same movie character, the same person at different times in his or her life. Now, that's not that, rare at the beginning. You can do that with any epic, movie.
Yeah, I mean, Back to the Future did it.
Exactly. Yeah. Literally any movie that spans one character and multiple decades of his or her life is going to have different actors or actresses playing that role.
Right.
What's special about this is a bunch of those actors and actresses meet at the same time through the wonders of time travel while they're watching their past or future self interact with their past or future self.
Yeah, so Back to the Future, this is not.
No, this is not that type of time travel, no, where you're just watching from afar. No.
Right. Yeah, and so essentially Ethan Hawke's character is a time cop.
They title, he doesn't have a name, he's just titled Barkeep.
Yeah, Barkeep.
Right.
But yeah, he's this agent.
He's a temporal agent.
Temporal agent. One of 11. And he's his character is like the most decorated and the most seasoned of the agents.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, he's very important to the organization itself. More so than just because of his skill or his experience, but basically what
who he is,
or no, and also who he'll become.
Right.
Because one of the things that I notice about this, it has like this weird. It's like one of the greatest tropes in like storytelling in general is that the good guy becomes the bad guy, or or through some sort of corruption, the good guy becomes the bad guy, and that's exactly what happens to Ethan Hawke's character. Is that he slowly becomes corrupted, and then he then goes against what he initially stood against.
And he finds out more about his past and especially more about his future as he jumps forward and back 5 years here, 10 years there, 22 years at one point. And he realizes that, as the movie title says, everything is predestined in a way, but at the same time, he's scared to try to take a different, role in his own past life.
Try to take some ownership and like actually carve out a destiny for himself.
Yep.
But in a weird way, what is it? It was a line of dialogue. So, like I think one of the time like brass was saying like, this antagonist that they're after, who goes by the Fizzle Bomber. He's I think one of the higher ups says like, oh, the Fizzle Bomber is very important to
our agency.
You could say that he was the one that made us, and I think it goes with like this idea of how like the thing that made you like is also the one that tries to destroy you. And it also kind of helps perpetuate the need for things, kind of like like a lot of government agencies, like they're started for a purpose, and then once that purpose is achieved or met, then logically speaking, that government agency should be shut down or shuttered or mothballed or whatever. But
they never end.
They never end.
And it can't help but be corrupted,
Exactly.
Time corrupts us all. We say, oh, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is definitely true in my mind. One of my favorite phrases. Time also, to a degree, to varying degrees, corrupts us all.
Right. And so I think that the Time Bureau purposely creates the Fizzle Bomber.
You think that's what so like the whole idea of like his time, like because it's like this violin case that is like the temporal
the time machine
essentially, where like it's supposed to like after their final mission, it's supposed to decommission so it no longer works.
Think Mission Impossible self-destruct.
Right. Yeah, but it didn't.
Right.
Do you think that was done on purpose?
I think so.
Because the thing is, like, the leader of the organization, Mr. Robertson, very enigmatic character, who we don't really know his motives.
Right.
And not only that, but it doesn't describe them at the end. You keep thinking, oh, this is the one character who I don't quite know, as you said, what his thinking is. And the movie ends kind of, on the open question of not only do you not know this guy's motives, you're not sure who he is. In my opinion, I thought at first watching through it, this is another representation of Ethan Hawke's singular personality. And although that's unlikely, it's also possible. It's possible that all 11 temporal agents of this time agency are actually one person, Ethan Hawke, at different time periods throughout his life.
That's like I said, I hadn't thought of it that, because I was thinking, like, who are the other 10? I would like to see. It's
that's also
we already know 2 of them are definitely
2 of them are Ethan Hawke. Yeah,
right. But
because there's the Ethan Hawke recently transgendered Ethan Hawke, and there's the middle-aged post face burned Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, exactly.
The barkeep.
But because one of the things, because I thought of this because I thought of the movie Source Code.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Haven't seen that one.
Okay. That's another kind of time travel thing where it's like there's like this secretive, a military branch, within the military that sends the consciousness of somebody into another, into somebody else so that they could divert a disaster.
Okay.
But spoilers. And then the spoiler is that at the end, they do divert a disaster, a train bombing derailment, and then everything's like reset. But then there's talks of shutting down the program because there hasn't been any
disasters
to thwart. So that's
which should be a great thing. Okay, good. We don't need to be here anymore. Yeah, so awesome.
Exactly. So that's what it gave me. That's what made me think that the time agency created, like, put this person, created the Fizzle Bomber in the desperate hopes to keep their agency, like, give them alive and relevance.
Could well be
to keep it going.
Yeah, it's just, and
the movie asks the question at the beginning and several times throughout, the classic metaphor of what came first, the chicken or the egg, and both early on and later on they answer neither. The answer is the rooster. Okay. Now, but what does that mean? Well, it's explained through this one singularity, this one paradox. The person that goes back in time, not just once, but several different times to visit his past self, and in fact, at one point has sex with his past self because he has become a transgendered male, and so he's now a man,
fully functional
male in his 40s,
which is,
and he goes back.
To quote Lieutenant Commander Data, he's fully functional.
He's fully functional. He's not shooting blanks anymore, as quoted by the character in this movie.
Yeah, John.
Yes,
John.
Exactly. And he goes back to visit himself in his late 20s, who is still Jane, as in, yes, Jane Doe and John Doe. That's their name because they are left abandoned at an orphanage as a baby. And so he literally impregnates his past self. They have a baby, and then the baby is snatched. The baby is kidnapped from the infant ward at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so the younger self, Jane, is, beside herself that her baby's been kidnapped.
Right. And in that, and because of the birth of her baby, it is revealed to her that she is actually
a hermaphrodite.
Yeah.
And because I guess neither of the sex organs matured fully, she was still able to have a baby, but then it ultimately destroyed
her female.
And she had to have a hysterectomy,
organs.
so she had to have her, uterus and fallopian tubes removed, which is a basic hysterectomy. And unfortunately, on the side of, let's just say the first part of this movie, it looks, for all intents and purposes, like a what's the word for it? A gender tale. This is a goodwill story.
Right. What are you making me watch?
Not the favorite genre of RJ and Andy here. This is a goodwill story, a pro LGBT, which is all well and good, but it's not exactly on the purview of our friends here at the Circle of Jerks podcast, and so when I recommended this movie to them, and the good friend who recommended this movie to me would definitely not have enjoyed that type of movie either. So I said, okay, there's got to be more going on here than just a let's call it Transamerica type movie, or a similar movie that was made as an independent film, which I thought was much more well done about 20 years ago. Was called Southern Comfort. Same thing, talks about, it's a documentary of sorts, following several transgender people throughout their lives. But that is definitely how this movie looked to me for the first half of the movie. I thought that's what it was. Like I said, even though there's hints, we're not introduced to the time travel aspect for sure until the 2/3 mark.
Right.
And so you don't know what's going on, except, this person who you understand from the very beginning recently had a sex change, female to male.
Yeah. Although a little, albeit somewhat unwilling sex change.
Right. Well, so in terms of the hysterectomies, that, and I'll throw in just a little bit of moral justice, not too much to swamp you guys on this podcast. That unfortunately was and still is in certain prisons and not so good places in the world. And the U.S. is accused of some of this in some occasions. Unwilling hysterectomies, as in women who are either in prisons, etc., who give birth and then they're made to, so that they never are able to have a baby again.
Right.
So, and that's what it looked
I always
like
found
here,
that. I always found in the movie, I found it interesting that instead of just allowing her to continue to live on as a woman, just without the female reproductive parts, they I guess take the bold step in transitioning her to a man.
See, here's my theory, because we're very unclear of Mr. Robertson's motives.
Right.
That's why I think, or I'd like to think that Mr. Robertson.
Well, really quickly, I think that would then play into my theory about how the Time Bureau is actually the one taking the steps to create the Fizzle Bomber. So they of course they would transition her without her permission.
Well, because the thing is, like, when she in that moment when she's talking to the doctor, a bunch of us got together and we had a consultation and we decided on doing this. I have a feeling that Mr. Robertson, knowing her medical, because he had all that information on her from when back
back when she was recruited to be part of this thing called Space Corp or whatever.
So he knows, and thinking about what he has way more information than we realize. He's knowing this, and it's like, I can create this fucked up science experiment and create this person that has no past, present, or future. It's the rooster, the predestination paradox. I can create that through this one person, and I think he was behind all that.
Yep. And when the baby is snatched, if you haven't figured it out already, the baby is also her.
Yeah, so, also Jane.
Is also Jane. So
kidnapped by her future self.
So there's actually at one point 3 selves in the same time period, which is the early 60s. They deliver the baby back to the mid 40s, where she's raised from an infant in an orphanage. And then you see her life flash forward through, her childhood years and her teenage and in her 20s.
Her formative years up until she's approached as she becomes of age, probably 18, graduating from high school and getting out of the orphanage. That's when Robertson comes to recruit her for supposed space travel, but really taking the first steps to creating the Fizzle Bomber, or the best damn agent that that the Time Bureau has ever seen.
Right. And yeah, it's just like I said, I was thinking oh, here we go. It's gonna be one of these, super lefty films, and it's
surprise.
And I was like, oh, thanks, Dan.
Right. No, I definitely spotted the spells. I'm just gonna put it up.
They were there. But the thing, but I will say this about it, because normally what happens in Hollywood, especially nowadays, where they'll take a story and then they'll whip up something in a cauldron, and it's and then turn it into some lefty garbage. Well, to be honest, the actual story that this is based off of, that's exactly what the guy wrote. Yeah. So I mean, it was.
And Heinlein is one of the classic sci-fi authors. I would say, in terms of propensity and just quality and quantity, he's second only of Americans to Isaac Asimov. In terms of at least 20th century, if we're just talking about 20th century. So we're ignoring the H.G. Wells, the Hugos, the Jules Verne's of the 19th century for a second, the Mary Shelleys. And of the 20th century authors, the so-called golden age of science fiction writing, which was the 1950s, basically it's Isaac Asimov, who is most famous for I, Robot and the Foundation series. And then it's probably Heinlein, who, in terms of movie adaptations of his books, Starship Troopers is, I would probably guess, the most famous. I'd have to think it's possible I'm missing one or two. There are a bunch that have been changed, like this one where the movie titles are different than the books, but Starship Troopers is the name of the book and the movie. And as a cult classic and cartoon series, that's right. So
can't forget that.
Robert Heinlein was just a really amazing sci-fi writer, and of what we think of, people who directly inspired Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek fame, for example. Heinlein and Asimov are the two guys.
Right.
So, doing that and doing what he did here was, fascinating, whereas it's a real mind bender. That's kind of what I wanted to say before.
100%.
It's a real mind bender.
Despite the narratives, despite the agendas being pushed, the story is actually very compelling.
Yeah, I'm not so sure they are.
I honestly have to admit that I was invested.
Yeah, I could argue even against the so-called narratives being pushed, which in a different type of movie would absolutely be true based on the first half of the story of this one, and basically they reference 2 or 3 famous early examples of sex change surgeries in the 50s. Christine Jorgensen is the only one who I knew of the 3 that they mentioned that I knew by name. Because I'm a sports fan and a tennis fan specifically, I know the Renee Richards story. If you haven't looked that up, that's a great story. I know there are 1 or 2 documentaries on it. I'm not sure if there's a non-documentary, like straight drama film, although there might be, based on Renee Richards. In short, was a male tennis player and a medical doctor in the 50s who decided at the age of 40 or so this would have been sometime in the 60s, maybe around 1970, he decided to transition to a female and went to Morocco, I believe, to get the surgery done, which at the time had the most famous and well-known gender reassignment surgeon in the world, and actually ended up in a very kind of early, 50 years ago or so, sports fiasco. He tried to qualify for the female tennis tour. Yeah, for the women's tennis tour. And he ended up doing it. He ended up, getting a court ruling where he did, because interestingly enough, he was a high-level amateur, but wasn't quite good enough to play on the male pro tour. But he did succeed
it's happening today.
This is 50 years ago, and this story, even among tennis fans, isn't that well known, let alone general sports fans. But it's actually a fascinating story. You can take your own biases as you will, and that's fine. But the story itself is fascinating. And when they interviewed him, he's very honestly in 2 minds about whether what he did was the right thing or not. So I give him credit for that. I want to say he has passed away since. That the documentary I saw was probably made, filmed 15, 20 years ago, and he was getting, pretty old at the time. Because if I'm right about the ages, would have been born around 1930, and that sounds right.
Okay.
Because I know he played and is older, but he played with Billie Jean King in doubles in certain professional tournaments that they ended up winning. So he won some major tennis tournaments, certainly doubles, probably not quite singles on the women's tour, but some doubles tournaments with Billie Jean King around the same time, the early 70s, that she was made famous, if not already famous, from the Battle of the Sexes, which was 73. So, yep. The story of Renee Richards, look look that up. And can't remember his original last name. He was Dr. Richard something, and he took on the female name Renee Richards. Yeah,
Richard as his.
Richard was his given first name. Yeah.
But yeah, like this movie though was, like I said, I was very compelled, and like I said, I'm a sucker for sci-fi and time travel.
Oh yeah.
And Ethan Hawke is a great actor. He doesn't get enough credit that he deserves.
And in terms of production, I really like the elegance of the violin case time machine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was the mobile time machine, and they even say how much it weighs. I think they say 6 kilos. 6 kilos, so it weighs 13 pounds basically. Something you can carry with you, not necessarily much heavier than
it's not a telephone booth or a DeLorean.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's very discreet. You could just you could pop in and out of places very easily.
Yeah, throughout his professional missions, Ethan Hawke's character is carrying probably a briefcase in one hand and a violin case in the other. So it's very very nonchalant.
It's all about like blending in, like not making disturbance.
Right.
Yet that's pretty much all he did was make disturbance.
Yeah, right. He is a living, breathing, walking disturbance.
He is a disturbance.
He is the paradox, the singularity, if you will, from I guess that was a Star Trek term.
Yeah. But I'm glad you recommended the film, and I would also recommend people to watch this.
And if you would remember it again, the one who introduced it to me, and I had surprisingly never heard of it, was our good friend Daryl, and he would have never...
AKA Santa Claus.
Yeah, this is Santa Claus, by the way. So he would have never suggested and, spouted so positively over a goodwill LGBT type documentary.
I mean,
or mockumentary, which is what I thought we were watching. Yeah, so if you would remember that, then you wouldn't have doubted that it was going to turn into.
It's a weird way. It's not just like an LGBT kind pro story, but in a weird way, like it's almost masturbatory. Because it's like a lot of like self-love kind of things. Like,
it's narcissistic.
It's narcissism.
It is in terms of loving yourself. Because at one point, at the climax of the film, Ethan Hawke's middle-aged character, who's still the now male character, but still played by Sarah Snook, is sent back to supposedly kill
the Fizzle Bomber.
The Fizzle Bomber, who Ethan Hawke explains
that it could have been the guy that impregnated Jane
and then disappeared. And so now the unwed mother is the de facto character name of the recently transgendered Sarah Snook character. The unwed mother agrees to say, yeah, of course I'll go back. He doesn't know he's going back in time, but once he realizes what's going on, that yeah, of course I'll kill the person who abandoned and ruined the life of my past self. And then when he's waiting to meet this supposed person, he instead bumps into literally his past female self. And at that point, he realizes, oh shit, it's me all along, and it's only ever been me. And I have a choice. I can either, take myself out of the picture by just ignoring my past self and never having a conversation, let alone relationship with her. But he just couldn't resist. And like you said, I like that narcissism aspect. And usually you think of that as a bad thing, self-love, narcissism, a negative term, negative ideology. But in this case, it can be looked at as both. It can be even looked at as the, so-called hippy-dippy love yourself type of philosophy.
Yeah.
And so again, you can look at it not just in two lights.
But I would classify it more as like kind of the destructive, detrimental type because it ultimately becomes a Fizzle Bomber. So
well, even taking out that Fizzle Bomber stuff. And yes, that's one of the main points of the movies. You could argue the main point. I personally think that's just a tiny side plot, believe it or not, that the Fizzle Bomber aspect, even though that's kind of the only overarching, because it's the most future timeline, I should say, of the Ethan Hawke character, he eventually, near the end of his life, becomes the Fizzle Bomber.
Right. And that's why I think that it is the Time Bureau behind creating the Fizzle Bomber, because after he's supposedly been decommissioned, Robertson still gives him an envelope, and then when he finally opens it, it's actually an assignment to go and confront the Fizzle Bomber, and ultimately keeping the cycle going.
Yeah, they talk about they don't name the ancient Greek name, but it's called the Ouroboros, which is the symbol of the snake in perpetual circle eating its own tail. It's called the Ouroboros. Yeah. And that's a good, metaphorical representation of this story, whereas, it's a never-ending circle.
I likened it to Don Quixote fighting the windmills.
Tilting against windmills. Yeah, that's another good one. Exactly. You mentioned that. Is that, this is a zero-sum game, to say the least, and at the same time, this movie, Predestination, is a you could say infinite sum game.
Yeah. I mean, there's no end.
Right.
Yeah, there literally is no end.
There's no end and no beginning. Don Quixote, there is still a beginning, and eventually, he gets stuck, so-called tilting with windmills.
Yeah.
But there is a beginning. Here, once you realize what the beginning of the story is, it really isn't one.
Yeah.
Okay, there's just a never-ending time loop.
Because again, it's a paradox, so it's like it's literally never-ending,
right.
And and the only way to get get off the
carousel.
The carousel, very good, carousel is to pull a looper. I mean, again, another time travel movie where
kill your past self. And
kill your past self to keep your future self from
ruining
the future.
Because really, it could have ended had he just killed the baby.
Of course, either killed the baby or there wasn't any. Believe it or not, there was no death that was needed. That's what I was getting at when he met his past self, Jane. He could have just broken. He could have broken the cycle then by just literally walking away, never having a conversation, never falling in love, literally, with his past self.
Yeah.
And he knew at that point. You saw his eyes open, the unwed mother character, and you knew that at that point that was the oh shit moment of the movie. Because you just knew that he now sees his own entire life in a new light, and he also realizes that I, as my younger female self, Jane, had a baby, and that baby, even kind of subconsciously, he knows that that's about to be the baby that I create with my younger past self.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm my own grandfather.
So it's pretty twisted. And jerks out there, if you're not confused and you get it perfectly, then you have not been listening to this podcast. I promise. If you're even more confused than we're making it sound, then that's perfect.
We kind of jumped around a lot.
You need to watch this movie.
Yeah, we kind of jumped around a lot. And, but I hope you guys were able to get some kind of sense for this movie. But ultimately,
if you got no sense at all, then guess what? That's what we had until about the third time we saw the movie, and but we recommend it despite that.
But I do love all the little kind of hints that they give to you, when the unwed mother character described when after she got her final transition operation, she said oh, there's something about my new face that reminded me of that bastard. It's like But this
I barely recognize. This is a face that not even my mother would recognize.
Oh, yeah, in the opener, that's right.
Opener, yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we give our ratings?
Yes, let's give our ratings. Dan, since you were the one who.
Oh, are we? Yes, I am a new guest here. Out of 5
stars.
Out of 5, I would give this a 4+. I'd give it a 5 easy for the first 80 to 90% of the film, and I'm only critical of, believe it or not, the shortness of it. And the fact that it ends not necessarily in an open question. I'm okay with movies ending in an open question, but it cuts off pretty severely with quite a few questions answered, and the character development of the Ethan Hawke / Sarah Snook versions of the character are great. The character development of some of the side characters, especially Mr. Robertson, are a little subpar for me. So yeah, I'll give this a 4+ out of 5. But this is one of my favorite sci-fi movies and of all time, and probably bordering on my top 20 of all time. So that's still definitely a strong 4.
Andy, what do you say? You?
I would have to agree. I'd probably give this I give this a solid 4. For all the things that you mentioned, and only slightly because of like the spells that are being cast in this movie, and like the narrative that's being pushed and stuff like that. And again, so it's a very slight. I mean, I could have been like the stereotype, of what people think, like conservatives or whatever, like think, and like, oh no, this movie was
it's
abomination.
A really well-told story.
Yeah, but it's a really well-told
hairs for different reasons and not giving it.
It's a really well-told story. It's very compelling.
Yeah.
I was invested the entire time, even though I saw the spells and I knew the narrative that was being pushed. But it's like
despite the narrative not bothering me the least bit, I was more fascinated by it. I absolutely admit that the first half of the movie, when they're just telling the backstory, seemingly for the entire movie until I was proven wrong, is quite slow, especially when you say this is only an hour and a half movie. That's the reason that, despite I admitting it's one of my favorite sci-fi movies, it gets a 4. Absolutely a good. I'm a tough critic in general, but so 4 is pretty damn high, and I might even give this a 4.5 to 5 if not for both the slightly slow beginning, and the end that kind of just cuts off abruptly. But otherwise, like you said, solid 4. We tend to agree. What do you say?
I would say 4 too. I like I said, it's slow, but it's slow on purpose. It's like it's for a purpose,
necessarily,
and like I said, I don't think you could manipulate the story any differently to do it right. So I think it was done very well. I would have liked to have seen like more of the machinations of Mr. Robertson, but like I said,
it should be a Mr. Robertson movie.
Yeah, and like I said, it did end a little abruptly. I felt like it. I mean, which is fine, it happens, but it just it does kind of just drop off a cliff all of a sudden.
And that's why when you eventually watch In Time, and that's absolutely worth a review on this podcast in the future, you'll see that I'm convinced whoever the directors were, and if it was the same director, wouldn't surprise me a bit, of In Time, which came out about 2 years after this movie, Predestination,
that sounds right,
they had definitely watched the movie and read the screenplay, because certain parts of it, most specifically the end of In Time, cuts off also abruptly so similarly that it can't be a full coincidence in my opinion.
It might be a Spirit Brothers
and it may be right. I don't know off the top of my head. We'll check on it. We'll look it up for you, jerks.
But no, like I said, 4, like I said, everything that Dan and Andy said, I agree with. It's definitely worth a watch. Great time travel movie, great sci-fi movie, and the thing is, it's a pretty original. Like there's really nothing out there like it.
No, exactly.
We looked this up, and this is the only representation.
It wasn't based off any prior like IP, or it wasn't a reboot or a sequel.
Yeah, they just
this was like pretty much a whole like
based on a Heinlein short story from the late 50s,
and it's very faithful to it too.
From what we read in our research. But that's the review for Predestination. Both Dan, myself, and Robert give this a 4. Definitely recommend it. Again, we all have different viewpoints or whatever, but we all agree that this was a great movie, great story, very compelling,
very well acted,
very well acted, very well cast too. I mean, just. Nothing was like out of place or too much in this movie. Everything was, in a weird way, it was a very bespoke kind of movie. If I,
said,
to put it in another way. But definitely recommend this. Do yourself a favor. Get, if you find yourself, especially now when people are still locked down, give it a watch.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us Tuesday night at our new time, 6 p.m. 9.